This week in Agribusiness, serving America's most essential industry with agriculture broadcasters Orion Samuelson and Max Armstrong, and featuring agriculture meteorologist Greg Solier. This week in Agribusiness is brought to you by Case IH and your local Case IH dealer. Coming up on this weekend's broadcast, an update on that crop in Ukraine. Will they have one, and how much this year? Hello, everyone. Welcome to this weekend's broadcast. It's a privilege to be with you again. Coming into your home, Mike Pearson is actually on vacation this week. We think he needed one, so we're giving him some time off. We want to talk a bit about Ukraine as it's in the news every hour, but the crop there we're wondering about. Cesar Cruz joining us in the studio from Advanced Trading, Director of Research with Advanced Trading. We've been hearing so much about their struggles, of course. Will they get a crop planted? That's the big question. What do you see as of this moment?
Thanks for having us here first, Max. And well, that's a very good question. We have a lot of uncertainty with Ukraine and Russia situation. What we hear is that producers are trying to get together and plant something. Maybe they're going to try to plant whatever they can harvest fast. I'm talking about rapeseed, maybe buckwheat, maybe corn and wheat. Maybe not going to be their first priority. They are having trouble. They don't know when the Russians are coming. They are not really there in the right place where they plant all those crops. But we also know that they are having a shortage of diesel. They're having problems with fertilizers. So we don't know exactly what their crop will be. We're hearing a lot that we can expect them to plant only half of the acreage. So that's also a possibility.
Assuming the best case scenario, assuming there is some kind of a ceasefire that will allow them to actually get into the fields, they're still not going to be anywhere near full crop production.
Probably not because of all those conditions I mentioned before. There's a problem with diesel, there's a problem with fertilizers. We also don't know how they're going to go back to the fields. Are they comfortable with the situation? Are they going to use their equipment in the field? We don't know yet if Russians are around. We don't even know if people are left in the fields. We know that close to 3 million people have already left to Ukraine. We don't know if those people were in the field. They were farmers. We don't really know how much they're going to put into planting this year.
So the labor to operate the equipment may be a real challenge. There may not be the people there to do it.
Exactly. So
then if they get a crop to maturity, it has to be harvested and transported.
Exactly. We were talking about that. Actually, logistics can be also a problem. We know that Russia has invaded several ports in the Black Sea. There is one major port left, Odessa, but those ports, they have to be used to export their crop. We don't know what the conditions are going to be left after the Russians leave the country. So that can be actually an issue. Transportation, they also have railroads. They're trying to transport some of their crops towards Poland and other countries in Europe. But we know that very few rail cars are available right now. Who wants to take the risk of transport those crops to other countries? So those are questions that we have to answer.
Have rail lines been damaged already? Have there been bombing efforts concentrating on those important farm-to-market rail lines?
We don't know yet what the extent of the damage the Russians have done to the railroads yet, but we know there are actually water mines in the ports that Ukraine's left. After what can happen after when the Russians come and when they leave, we don't really know, but it's very likely that bridges, railroads, ports are going to be damaged, and that can be a compromised crop for this year.
As we look at the calendar where we are right now, is it very possible that they'll have no exportable supplies, that whatever they grow, they might even just keep there to use domestically?
If that happens, we're looking at huge carry-on stocks for the next year. And whenever they have the chance to export those crops, they'll be doing that.
If they grow them.
If they grow them, yeah, that's a good point. If they grow maybe at least part of their crop, we believe they're going to do something. Of course, there's people there. They're interested in putting their fertilizers, their seeds in the field. They're interested in working and keeping their properties. And if they do that, we're going to see something, but very likely to see a very low crop for Ukraine this year, unfortunately.
Thank you for giving us an update as best as you folks can see it and share with us. We sure appreciate it, Cesar.
Thanks for having us here again.
Cesar Cruz, he's Director of Research for Advanced Trading, joining us here this week on This Week in Agribusiness. This portion of This Week in Agribusiness is brought to you by Firestone Ag. The Firestone Ag Dealer Network offers you the support, inventory, and resources you need. Visit firestoneag.com to find your local certified dealer. We continue talking about Ukraine with another one of the folks from Advanced Trading. Joining us here, Drew Moore, President of Business Development with Advanced. Have we priced in all of the loss of the crop yet that could take place, or is everybody a little bit hesitant to take that dramatic step yet?
I think most are a little hesitant to take that dramatic of a step. What we see from our analysis is about a 10% increase year over year, and that 10% essentially is the war being priced in right now across grains, corn specifically. So if you look at carryouts year to year, they're about the same, right? But we're about 60 cents higher than last year at 660 nearby futures. So we call it about 10% right now. So is it all priced in? Probably not. But certainly we do have some premium in the market because of the Ukraine-Russia war.
So is there any premium for crop challenges in the United States as we start to turn a little more of the focus to U.S. crop production, as some of it is already going into the southern part of the country?
Yeah. So if you look at the soybean corn ratio at 2.29, that's most I think most analysts would call that a little bit more favorable to soybeans. So you're starting to see private estimates come out with a little bit heavier soybean acreage. The USDA is at 88 million acres planted for this spring. We're right in that camp of 88, and then you're starting to see some privates, closer to 89, 90 million acres planted. In terms of corn, it seems like a lot of folks are around that 92.5. We're at 92.5 million acres of corn planted, but certainly we need the northern hemisphere to come through. United States and China specifically. A lot of debate on how much gets planted in Ukraine. A lot of chatter around 50%. But also you need to be minded of what's going on in Brazil right now. You've got 95% of that second crop, that's a Safrinha crop, and that's very important because we're about 7% ahead of last year, and they need to get that corn in the ground. And they also need a moisture profile to kind of help grow a large crop. So if we don't have near record crops in Brazil, the United States, and in China, we're going to be in a lot of trouble moving forward.
Drought conditions in Brazil could trim that Safrinha crop a little bit.
Absolutely. We saw that last summer. That was something that couldn't happen, and it did. And that certainly kept prices elevated, even through last fall. And if that happens again, we're only going to see the same thing, only to probably a higher degree, Max.
Before we leave the discussion about acreage, we got a new update from USDA with the planting intentions report coming up. What do you generally see in these intentions reports? Are they a little bit conservative?
They generally tend to be year to year. You look at total acreages planted in the United States and how much do you carve out for soybeans, how much do you carve out for corn. That's certainly the focal point. I don't think they get too. I don't think they vary in too heavy of a degree from the outlook, right? At 92 million acres of corn and 88 million acres of soybeans, but it seems like most in the Midwest, kind of have a field or two that didn't get anhydrous applied, and so that's kind of the French. Do you swing it to corn? Do you swing it to soybeans? And if that is the case, what is the overall impact moving forward? But as you noted, earlier when we were chatting, it's that acreage intentions is set and for 3 months.
What's your sense about spring wheat country, spring and durum wheat? What will be happening there? Who's winning that acreage battle?
Sure, that's a great question. If you look at the weather in the west versus the east right now, the west is certainly dry. Weather is on the hard red winter wheat. They certainly need a rain. Same could be said for spring wheat as well. It doesn't seem like there's a huge divide, I would say, between durum and spring year over year. But they are to the west certainly dry. right now, and really they have a little bit better of a chance of kind of some rain here early next week, but the 6 to 10, 8 to 14 day forecasts are still dry.
But will some of that acreage be pulled into, for example, corn or soybean crops?
It should be. It should be. Yes. It's always a debate on those fringe acres. You've got extreme volatility in the wheat market, as most know. Earlier this week on Wednesday, lock limit down across all wheat complexes. So, it's very debatable, I think, here moving forward.
We'll be back with you in just a minute to continue the conversation. Drew Moore joining us from Advanced Trading. Now, this portion of This Week in Agribusiness is brought to you by Firestone Ag. Harvey Firestone invented the first pneumatic farm tire, forever changing what it means to farm hard. Visit firestoneag.com to learn more about this history and the tire solutions for today. Drew Moore is back at the desk with us here on This Week in Agribusiness this weekend from Advanced Trading. You spoke of the volatility. You mentioned the wheat. The volatility has been there with us so many days here of late. What do you suggest to your farmer customers as to how to manage through these times and yet capture as much value as possible?
That's a great question, Max. The thing that keeps me up at night, and my family farms as well, is that we're going to plant the most expensive crop ever, right? In a matter of 2 weeks, starting in 2 weeks, and so how do we manage that, right? You look at the CME's got $15 options listed. I mean, are we that bullish? What is the true meaning when we look at overall pricing mechanisms moving forward? Certainly not saying that the prices are going to go that high, but there's a lot of risk on the table, and so having some type of strategy is a conversation we're having every day with our farmers across the United States, and making sure that strategy is disciplined and can be utilized really year to year, and not only in this year. But we have to protect these high prices that we're seeing, even if prices do go significantly higher. Certainly, always something that could happen, but no idea where prices are headed longer term. But I have a lot of profit to protect moving forward.
The option strategy is something your growers are comfortable with. You've worked with them in the past on this?
It has. Education and a lot of cadence with the farmers and larger farmer operations. It's something we talk about every day, but we want to make sure that using put options to protect the downside is certainly forefront on the top of mind for these guys, but also managing those options as well is something we do day in and day out, depending on the volatility of the marketplace.
There is little downside risk at this moment, correct?
It certainly seems that way. A ceasefire in Russia, and then some type of negotiation, and then them essentially, Ukraine, Russia having an adequate sowing season here over the next 2 to 3 months, that could negate prices significantly, right? We've seen wheat month over month up 32%, but at its peak it was up 80%. So this extreme volatility is here to stay. Just to what degree right now?
Do you help also? You were talking about the cost of doing business. Do you work with your producers on, for example, their hedging their fuel risk?
That's something we'd like to do a little bit more of, and certainly top of mind as well. But the larger contracts that the CME has listed, they now have micro contracts, so it's a little bit easier to manage. But as prices continue to climb, both from a commercial standpoint and retail farmer standpoint, that's certainly more on our topics recently.
U.S. planting progress. How critical will that be? How closely will the markets watch it this spring? Let's say we get a rain delay, for example, to the Eastern Corn Belt. Does that hold potential for lifting prices? Or conversely, if it's timely planting?
It does. Yeah. If we are not adequately planted and in accordance with the 5-year average, I think that the market will certainly take that and run with it. As I noted earlier, we really need to have a record crop in Brazil, the United States, and China here over the next 6-7 months.
Drew, thank you for being here. Nice to see you.
Thank you very much, Max. Appreciate it.
Drew Moore with Advanced Trading, President of Business Development with that firm. Chad Colby's look at agriculture technology comes your way next, brought to you by the IBM Watson Decision Platform. Combining AI with Internet of Things data to help agribusiness increase yields, improve quality, and drive sustainability. You regular viewers should not be surprised that he's gone shopping again. Let's see what Chad has to show you.
If my desk is like yours, it's always full of technology. We got computers and monitors and tablets and headphones. We got all the gear. And this past week, Apple rolled out the next generation of their product lineup, and I'm excited to share it with you. In fact, Max Armstrong even called me right after the launch because he needed the scoop. And the reason why is we get asked all the time, what phone should I be looking at? What tablet? And with spring right around the corner, especially tablets are in high demand on our farms and ranches. And Apple added a major development to the iPad Air. Remember, that's the model that's kind of right below the iPad Pro. The Pro has all the bells and whistles, but it's a little salty in price. You're talking about somewhere between $1,500 and $2,200 by the time you load this thing up. And quite honestly, most of you don't need that. The new iPad Air got the new processor. That's the same one that's in the tablet, that's in my computer, which is second to nothing that Apple's ever produced. If you got a tablet a few years old, trust me, it will be a huge gain. That new tablet has a new screen, 5G connectability, the latest editions of Wi-Fi, not to mention a new camera and center stage. If you haven't seen center stage, it is amazing. Essentially, the device stays still, and as you move around, say in FaceTime, the software will stay with you. And you can even bring another party in. As you can see right here, this thing is amazing. The other thing Apple came out with are some new monitors. And for me personally, I'm excited about that. In fact, I ordered one. And what's nice is this monitor right here, which is an external display for my MacBook, I've had for 4 years. But what Apple did is they took all those great features of Apple, like center stage, new speakers, new microphones, and tied that into a completely new display. I'm pretty excited about that. Unfortunately, though, I'm not going to get it until mid-May. The good news, though, that tablet went on sale this past Friday, and the new iPhone SE. That is an amazing phone if you need one for your son or daughter, or you just need a spare phone. For a little over $400, that is a great phone that just got a lot of great new enhancements. For This Week in Agribusiness, I'm Chad Colby.
Yes, we did call Chad. We knew it wouldn't take much to get him excited about those new offerings coming out from Apple. He's always there when they hit the market. I guess you could say it's the spring of the new sprayers for the farm equipment companies. The folks at Agro have one, John Deere has one, Case IH has its new 50 Series Patriot sprayer. Mark Burns with Case IH says it's 80% new content.
So we're talking about new cabs, new suspension, new seat suspension, new armrest, new spray technology, the list goes on and on.
And there's some features maybe that you wouldn't think about unless you're an operator who's had the need in the past. The ability to clean nozzles, for example.
Right, and this is something that through our CDPD process, or customer-driven product design, it was asking folks that make their living running sprayers, what would make your life a whole lot easier? And this nozzle wash station that you'll find on the back of every Patriot 50 Series accomplishes that. Something as simple as an individual quarter-turn wash valve and an air nozzle to blow out a tip or clean things off is going to be phenomenal.
The ride of this unit is important, isn't it? And it's not just operator comfort. You need a good, steady ride across the field, don't you?
That's right, because chassis stability results in boom stability, which maintains a proper spray platform for our application control. And it all starts with the chassis suspension. So this machine is a clean sheet design using a 4-bar linkage, very similar to what you'd find on a planter row unit. And then couple that with an airbag for not only ride quality but ride height. And then the last piece is going to be a tuned shock absorber, and that is really providing that planted or controlled feel, especially when you do rapid acceleration or deceleration. And without that, you tend to see a lot of that seesawing back and forth. This is going to take that completely out of the picture.
Mark Burns pointed out the spraying season is long, all the way from pre-plant to post-harvest now, for farmers really utilizing that equipment. Well, they'll be writing the Farm Bill over the next few months. I talked about that with Jackie Fatka, who covers Washington for Farm Progress. I asked her about a sense of urgency. Do they feel like they really need to get things done, or will they look perhaps at just extending the current bill?
You know, the nice thing, this is the election year, right? 2022 is the election year. Sometimes those years fall of an expiration during election year, and it is always hard to pass anything in an election year. So I think by the fact that it is 2023, we may have a greater chance of getting it passed on time. I think that's a lot of people's hope and goal, because if you do roll it into 2024, if you have just a one-year extension, all of a sudden you're into a presidential election. And so you are into a lot more, just problems getting that consensus that this is a bipartisan vote. It's always been a bipartisan vote. You get both members from both sides, and everybody eats food. You have rural districts from every blue state and red state. And so that's kind of a hope anyway, that 2023 would be when we would likely see something, unless it's a longer term extension. I don't think you'd get a one-year extension in 2023.
At times in the past, we've seen quite a debate on splitting up nutrition and agriculture programs, and maybe even having different agencies involved. Do you see that returning?
No, I think the ag community understands the benefit of having that partnership with the nutrition program, and making sure that you have those coalitions. And it's not just nutrition, it's nutrition, environment, conservation, and your traditional commodity groups, and how all of those common threads come together and have a forward-looking approach on the Farm Bill. And so I think that was talked about more maybe a couple years ago. You were not hearing much of that now. I think that people understand the benefits of coalitions, especially in getting a Farm Bill across the finish line.
There are some new faces who've never been involved in writing a Farm Bill before, and that could actually, we could see even more new faces arriving there in Washington with no Farm Bill experience. What does that do to the farm organizations? Does it hurt their efficacy in getting a new bill in place?
I think right now, the top four, we talk about the big four, which would be the Senate and House Ag ranking members and chairmen and chairwoman. Debbie Stabenow is the chairwoman right now in the Senate Ag Committee, and she is the only one who has done a farm bill from the lead position, right? A lot of these folks have been involved in the farm bill discussions, but the other three chairs or ranking members are all new. So you've got Chairman Scott from Georgia and the House. You've got new Republicans both on the House and the Senate, and so that comes with new priorities in different regions too, right? Colin Peterson from Minnesota is going to have a very different agenda than Scott from Georgia, and just those different priorities. Now, we also could see that switch if we see in 2022 elections shift patterns, especially maybe in the House, where that's more in play, where we could see a shift from Republicans being the ranking members to actually being the chair of those committees. Definitely different priorities. The last time we saw a lot of debate on able working bodies within the SNAP program. The nutrition fight, does that come back into play if we see Republicans? Conservation funding is something that Senate Ag is, Chairwoman Stabenow is very much a champion for. So how does that come together? And if you have Republicans on one side of the chamber and Democrats on the other also, what kind of path forward does that bring with the Farm Bill? So all things we'll be watching this year and kind of calculating how that impacts the final Farm Bill package.
Visiting with Jackie Fatka, I noticed there's been that bipartisanship, that spirit of cooperation between parties when farm bills have been written in the past, and we wonder if that can continue. Maybe we'll get a better grasp of that in the week ahead as we'll be in Washington. There'll be some lawmakers around indeed for the National Ag Day observance. Coming up a little bit later, we'll talk about a special display for the 2022 Agriculture Day equipment on the National Mall. Stay with us here. This Week in Agribusiness, serving America's most essential industry, is brought to you by Case IH. Welcome back to this weekend's edition of This Week in Agribusiness. It's a pleasure to visit with you once more. We thank you for joining us. Mike Pearson is on vacation this weekend, but a few days ago, carbon was on his mind. He was talking with the folks from Agro Carbon Alliance about the opportunities that farmers might have in the future. And Mike posed the question, what happens right after that grower signs a contract?
So something that's very important to us at the Agro Carbon Alliance is our customer success team, our grower success team, and our role is to work with growers after they've signed a contract to get them into the program. So whether it be uploading their field boundaries, mapping their field boundaries, uploading their data, going through what data they need, we have a specific team that's working to help that grower walk through that process. We're not just going to sign that grower into a contract and then say, okay, you're on your own, figure it out. We have a specific team of agronomists that are focused on that part of the business.
That's incredible, and it matters because these aren't short contracts. Can you tell us how long Agro contracts are and why are they that length?
So our contract term is 10 years, and the reason these carbon market contracts are so long is because the buyers want to be purchasing real change, and it takes a time to really see that change and accumulate soil carbon.
It certainly does. Mark, what can a farmer expect from the support team as they're navigating these practice changes?
So one thing that I'm very proud of to be a part of this team is that every one of our agronomists and grower success team members personally believes in these practice changes in agronomics, and we all come from backgrounds that have these experiences in our careers. So we are all personal believers in this, and we want to see these growers thrive when they implement these changes. So we are going to be a resource to them throughout the length of their contract so that they are successful while they're in contract with us.
As we're going through the contract, as the growing seasons are coming and going, how often would you expect a contracted grower to be in touch with the grower support team, or what kind of other support would you provide?
Our goal is really to be in contact with these growers, throughout the year, every year in the contract. We want to be used as a resource for them implementing this practice change. If they have questions, we want them to approach us and call us and contact us, and we really want to be their trusted advisor in this carbon space.
And it's interesting from the Agro perspective, you guys aren't just folks doing a job. You've got a passion for this sustainability mindset.
Yes, correct. I myself am a first-generation farmer with my brother-in-law, and we implement these practices on our own acres. So I personally greatly believe in this message and this transition in agriculture, and I really look forward to the future.
We thank Mark for sharing the visit with us, and thanks to Mike Pearson for helping get that to us too. There's a website, agrocarbonalliance.com. If you'd like to get some more information, they say carbon is your next cash crop. Greg Solier now brings us his farm weather forecast for the week ahead, presented by Pivot BioProven 40. Predictable, productive, weatherproof. Turn to a better nitrogen. Turn to Pivot BioProven 40. Learn more at pivotbio.com. Well, as we advance into early spring, we'll be more interested in the weather because we'll need to be seeing an advance of field work, too, at the same time. Greg Solier joining us here to give us a look at the week ahead. Western part of the country to begin with.
Yeah, absolutely. And the drought obviously continues on. What was a very promising month of December has whittled away to nothing here as we get ready to wind our way through the conclusion of the wet season for the western states. Although a different story from the Cascades on westward. It's been really too much of a good thing in the next in a series of at least faster moving features making its way early to middle parts of the week. Milder air across sections of the plains. A little rain snow mixture there. The past couple of systems have at least generated some late season snows down here. So we've gotten some at least modest drought relief as this low drops in, by the way, over the late portion of the week. May do it all over again. Some fairly cold air for late winter time and early spring through the Canadian prairies. So that'll help to fuel some significant moisture here. Drying out across the Pacific Northwest. We've had some rain last week in Northern California. Cooler, drier air settles in later on this week. Kind of a benign setup of weather across the southwestern sections of the country. The runoff, we've already really tapped into that off the Sierra range. And of course, moisture has been disappointing this season, a trademark of La Nina. Milder air coming off some recent snow and rain. Some modest relief, again, from the drought over Colorado, the western and central areas of the high plains. We get a new weather system to drop in later in the week. This shows some promise with some colder air, bit of rain over to snow, and ahead of it, showers and thunderstorms. So it is a little more active weather pattern, Max, applying to at least some modest drought relief over parts of the plains and southwestern states as the week wears on.
I have some friends still in the midst of calving. They don't want extreme cold if they can avoid it.
And for the time of year, cold, but not the degree of severity that we've seen in recent weeks of that sub-zero cold. Here's one weather system, by the way, and warmth of last week and the wind drying out some of the eastern and southern Corn Belt fields that were a little bit on the wetter side, easing down some of the streams and rivers. The Wabash, for example, a brief shot of some cooler air across the western Corn Belt. We drop in some colder air again across the northern and central plains, and running along this boundary ahead of it, showers and thunderstorms middle to late portions of the week. So some additional drought relief and what's left of the snow cover through Wisconsin, moisture for the western Corn Belt, and another late season snow livestock producers into parts of the central plains. It's been a pretty busy past couple of weeks, and of course last week was severe weather into parts of Oklahoma and Texas. It's that time of the year on east, but a quiet start to the week. We'll watch the low across the Oklahoma Panhandle coming off last week's snow and rain. Probably going to do it all over again. Colder air drops on in, Gulf moisture, some severe weather potential, but at least again drought relief for Oklahoma and Texas. Boy, that pasture land and winter wheat crop in Texas and Oklahoma really struggling along.
Yeah, you dropped that Wabash in there just for me, didn't you?
Absolutely,
Knowing
yeah.
of the days of my misspent youth and the Wabash bottoms.
Ah, okay. Well, I'm glad to know. And maybe I should make mention of the Kickapoo as well for Mr. Samuelson, of which there's a shot of cold air and a snowflake here early in the week. Warmer air on the move and some moisture into the northeastern part of the country. Things do ramp up with that warm front moving on through, some late season cold into the northern and central parts of the Corn Belt and westward. Ahead of it, showers and thunderstorms again. The last of the snow melt through the northern parts of New England, and a little rain-snow mixture again moving into the northern and western Corn Belt locales. So moisture into play there, and it's been a busy weather pattern, and we've gotten some recharge as well into parts of Florida. Drought here expanding in this part of the country, and the likelihood of severe weather for the Delta region. Tennessee Valley, we're waterlogged here. Additional showers and thunderstorms mid to late portions of the week, with late spring warmth feeling its way into the southeastern part of the country.
Greg Solier is back with his extended farm weather forecast for the country, presented by Pivot Bio Proven 40. Predictable, productive, weatherproof. Turn to a better nitrogen. Turn to Pivot Bio Proven 40. Learn more at pivotbio.com. Will there be some significant moisture coming along over the next few days? I know some farmers who've said, hey, really, we don't need any, and others are just the extreme, Greg.
Exactly, of course, into parts of the eastern and southern Corn Belt of late, and of course, this time of the year, it's snow melt, and we've kind of brought it down gently over the northern and western parts of the Corn Belt, upper Midwest. This week, after making some progress and drying things out, we're back into play. Another 1 to 2 inches worth of rain with a couple of weather systems and the likelihood for severe weather down through the Arklatex, northeast and parts of the upper Ohio Valley. Some generous rain here. This is good news, including parts of Florida. A couple of snow showers, high plains, most of the accumulation down here, southern areas, and some scattered quarter to half inch into the Pacific Northwest, Northern California. We can manage that, but certainly need more of it eastward through Big Sky country. Little to none, as you would expect, in the southwestern part of the country this time of the year.
You have a little bit in Nebraska and the Plain States, but not a lot there.
That's right. Over the past week to 10 days, we've seen about 1 inch to 2 inches water equivalency. And as we move on through the waning days of March and April here, we still got this cool to cold air prod kind of laying out a weak trough over this part of the country, some warmth over the southeastern part of the country, southwestern sections too. Nothing extreme or out of control, but a propensity for weather systems to bring some moisture. Good news, Pacific Northwest energize a little bit here and make their way to the south and southeast, generating probably some late season snows north of the St. Lawrence. Significant moisture here, and in some of the drier areas of the Carolinas, opportunities for additional moisture recharge there too.
That northern cold air, that first full week of April, will it be expanding?
Looks like to a certain degree into the northeast of New England, but good news over the western Corn Belt, back to seasonal temperatures, warmth over this part of the country. We'll get these lobes that kind of lay out of this part of the country with cold and very much colder than usual weather as you get up towards the St. Lawrence River Valley and points on northward. So weather systems like to migrate to that. Moisture kind of overruns it, and you get these particular setups, probably some late season snowfall, Canadian border, some shower and thunderstorm activity in this corridor, and drought relief, maybe not necessarily early field work opportunities. Normal precip over the Ohio Valley. We'll keep an eye on some of the waterlogged areas here, but again, expanding dryness and drought continues on. Texas back in the southwestern sections of the country, and above average moisture, by the way, for the Pacific Northwest.
This really is a time of the year when we can have a lot of storms, as you noted earlier, looking at your forecast. We observed the anniversary of the deadliest tornado in American history this past week, the tri-state tornado.
Exactly, and it's this time of the year we watch the northward migration on some of that severe weather, and you get these range of temperatures from late season cold here, usual warmth over the Gulf Coast, southeastern part of the country, and the trough, the buckle right here across this particular part of the country. So it's usually in this corridor that we have to keep an eye on severe weather prospects. And there you have it. Systems again drop in out of the Pacific Northwest. Good news from a moisture relief and dryness and drought situation here. Early field work probably not so great, but again, we bring the moisture back to the north and northeast, and the likelihood in this corridor of showers and thunderstorms probably heavy and severe. Normal moisture for the Delta, southeastern part of the country, and that's good news down through Florida. The dry spells continue on West Texas and across much of California.
Next on This Week in Agribusiness, it's Max's Tractor Shed, spotlighting another great American tractor.
It's been a destination for thousands of tractor fans, and the proprietor there greeted everybody with warmth and kindness and enthusiasm when they came to Paquette's Tractors in Florida. Max's Tractor Shed is brought to you by Store Lock Tool Cabinets. You know they guarantee these for 55 years, and they feel comfortable doing that. They are so solid, so well built. StoreLock.com is the website. Drop in there and see what they have. Stu Paquette made his living as a road contractor over the years, but he was bitten by the bug, very excited about farm equipment, specifically excited about what International Harvester made. And that was really interesting because he had never been on an international tractor, but he collected tractors and trucks and appliances and shared with us about 5 years ago how he got started.
When I sold a company here in Leesburg, when I was in the construction business here and the paving business, when I sold that, I said, now what am I going to do? You know, I felt like I wanted to do something else. And I felt like there was something else for me to do. And kept gnawing at me. And one day, I'd never watched RFD TV. It was just come on the air, I think, when that happened, and it came on the air, and I caught it by going fishing through the channels there, and I see this Max Armstrong in Chicago driving his H tractor down through Chicago for a photo shoot. And the guy stopped, and he'd take you a picture of you, and they'd come down the next place and take another picture. And the minute you got off the air, I called my friend in Vermont, and I told him, I says, Mo, his name was Mo Provo. I says, Mo, I want to buy a tractor. I want to buy a pulling tractor or something. And he says, what do you want, a John Deere? I said, no, I don't want a John Deere. I want International.
Stu Paquette passed away just a few days ago. He'll be remembered fondly by many. Well, Mark Stock is here to fill us in on what's going to cross the block at Big Iron Auctions.
Well, Max, we have got 2,671 items selling on the March 23rd Big Iron Auction. There's 9 retirement sales. Roger and Pam Frickel are retiring from Atkinson, Nebraska. They got 67 high-quality items. They've got a Kinsey 1050 grain cart, a Case IH 7088 combine. They got a John Deere 1990 Series 42-foot air seeder. Plus, they got a Case IH 1260 36-row 30-inch planter and a Magnum 305 tractor, plus a John Deere 8410T track tractor. Benjamin Ashcraft is from McDougall, Arkansas. Folks, check out his 2020 Case IH 9250 track combine. He's also got a MacDon FD 140 draper head. There's a John Deere 9460R selling on his retirement sale. He's got a John Deere 8235R, a John Deere 8230 and 8530 tractors. Plus, he's got a J&M 1000-20 grain cart, and Deke Trucking Inc. out of Streeter, Illinois. 32 outstanding trucks, folks, selling, and trailers. They've got 5 2007 Peterbilt 379 semi-trucks. They've got platinum engine overhauls, folks. 2 Kenworth T660s. They got 2 2014 Pete 384 trucks. There are 11 Tempty grain trailers selling. They're 2018 and 19 models. Plus, they've got end dump trailers. They've got 3 walking floor trailers. An exceptional line of truck and trailer equipment selling for Deke Trucking out of Streeter, Illinois. The market is really, really active, Max. Go to BigIron.com to check out all this quality equipment.
As we put FFA in the spotlight this weekend, we go to Minnesota. The state secretary of the FFA organization, Nicole Kozalik, joins us here, a student at the University of Minnesota. Right, Nicole?
Right.
What are you studying? What do you want to do when you're done with your studies there?
Right now I'm studying agricultural communication and marketing. I came into college thinking I was going to bridge the gap between farmers and consumers, and that was the end-all be-all. Now that I've been in college, I've learned that I love doing the hands-on design part of communications. So I'm looking to add a graphic design minor and would love to work for an agricultural company doing their branding and marketing for their organization.
You know, there's student competition each year through the National Agro Marketing Association. You can learn a lot through that group. Maybe you already know.
Yeah, I'm actually an officer for our student NAMA group on campus here this year. So it's been fun to get more into that student organization and learn a lot through it.
You mentioned, though, talking with consumers, sharing the story with consumers. There's that opportunity, whatever your lot in life is there not?
Oh, that opportunity has come to me even since I was a little elementary student, because a lot of my friends back home have no connection to agriculture. So a lot of my friends would come to the farm and learn about what we're doing on the farm and ride in the combine and walk my show pigs with me. So it's been a really fun kind of job and thing to do during my time growing up, and I hope I continue it going into the future.
Your work in FFA, what have you enjoyed most about it, Nicole?
The people. The people have got me into it and kept me in it. The connections you make are absolutely amazing in FFA, and starting out as a 9th grader, I was really shy and would probably hide behind my dad if I was meeting anybody. And FFA really brought me out of my comfort zone, and now it's not a big deal to go up and talk to someone new. So I've loved that growth aspect that the FFA organization has brought me and many others.
Was there an advisor who helped bring you along as well?
Oh yes, Mr. Terry, who is pretty much a legend in Minnesota FFA. He's just about to retire, but he's past his 50-year mark of teaching, and super amazing. Would not have been as interested in FFA and agriculture if it wasn't for him.
Advisors have made such a difference in the lives of young people. Nicole Kozalik among them. Nicole, thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
Nicole is the secretary of the Minnesota FFA organization. The week ahead is Agriculture Week, and there'll be activities all over the country observing Ag Day. One of the most prominent, if not the most prominent, will be in the nation's capital, along the Washington Mall, a first-time ever event. Kurt Blades with the Association of Equipment Manufacturers joins us to talk about what's happening, and a novel event, Kurt, and you've had a front row seat for putting it together.
Well, we've been working on putting equipment on the mall for 3 years. In fact, 3 years ago, we had planned to do this, and then the pandemic hit. But we are so excited to have 30 exhibits representing a cross-section of agriculture, telling the story of modern agriculture with the tractors and combines of equipment manufacturers sort of being the anchor that's going to draw people's attention.
That mall is a spectacle when there's nothing on it, stretching from the Washington Monument to the Capitol building, and then all of the memorials and the buildings of government around it there. This is going to be quite a display, one could imagine. What will we see? Give us an idea of what will be visible there.
Well, so we'll be right in front of the castle, if you're familiar with the way the National Mall is. We have 2 blocks, or essentially a half mile of equipment spreading from roughly halfway between the Washington Monument and the Capitol. And that's ranging from Agco to U.S. Rice, if we want to go alphabetically. But there'll be about 25 different large pieces of equipment, along with about 20 to 30 ag associations, all lined up in small tents telling their story.
So there'll be
got a collection of VIPs walking around telling those same stories as well.
There'll be people from the companies and the associations interacting with the public then.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's spring break season. It's going to be peak cherry blossom, so we're expecting a whole lot of walk-in traffic. I was just walking on the mall last night as the equipment was starting to come in, and I'll tell you what, there was a hover around a combine header, and nobody was there to talk about it at that point. It was just more an interest, and I am so looking forward to having these conversations with the general public as well as with regulators and elected officials, so we can say this is what we're doing. These are some cool pieces of equipment, but it's really making a difference in feeding the world.
We hear the Secretary of Agriculture will be there, along with some lawmakers as well.
You bet. Secretary Vilsack will be celebrating National Ag Day with us on Tuesday. He's currently scheduled to be there at 1 p.m. And we also have at least tentatively 8 senators have confirmed that they're planning to do a VIP tour of this event. And one of the really interesting things that I'm really proud of is that we're going to have a bipartisan effort of Chairman Stabenow and Ranking Bozeman, senators of the Senate Ag Committee, are planning to be there together, walking around the exhibits, learning about what agriculture is doing as they prepare to write the next farm bill.
Yeah, maybe it's a harbinger of bipartisanship to come in writing that farm bill over the next few months, huh?
Absolutely. I mean, there's few things that are bipartisan and common in today's political climate. So to have a bipartisan effort celebrating agriculture, that should make us all feel good if we're in this industry.
We'll join you in Washington for all of the activities and share some of the views here on our broadcast next weekend. Kurt, thanks for filling us in on it.
Thank you so much, Max.
Take care. Kurt Blades with the Association of Equipment Manufacturers, just ahead of the 2022 National Agriculture Day observance. We hope you have a great observance wherever you are in America this Agriculture Week, paying tribute to our farmers and ranchers and what they do every day, all year long. We'll see you next weekend here. So long, everyone. Closed captioning for This Week in Agribusiness is brought to you by Kubota. Shape your world. This Week in Agribusiness is brought to you by Case IH. This Week in Agribusiness is produced by Omax Communication in association with 22 Creative Group. We invite you to visit us online at agbizweek.com.